So as you can see here, I have marked up the lawsuit, and I'm going to go through that um, and try to do what we did for NASCOURT and just read through it. Obviously, I'm not a legal expert, but this is just the stuff that jumped out at me. Background is Chris Gabehart, for those of you who don't know, or maybe aren't even NASCAR fans and found this somehow, was a very successful crew chief at Joe Gibbs Racing, known as one of the smartest people in the garage. He got moved from Denny Hamlin's crew chief to the competition director of Joe Gibbs Racing, which oversees all of the teams. And that lasted for a year. And during that time, they had a great amount of success and had two drivers in the Final Four, had one in position to win the championship, Denny Hamlin, and ultimately did not work out, but still they led the team in wins, or they led the series in wins last year, the organization did. So then suddenly we find out that he's not there anymore. And what's going on? Well, a lot of blanks have been filled in now with a lawsuit that was filed Thursday, February 19th in federal court, the same Western District federal court that the antitrust lawsuit just took place. Different judge assigned to this case for now, but so let's go through it. Let's see what Joe Gibbs Racing is alleging, not, this is just allegations in the suit. So it's not proven in a court of law, but this is what they're alleging that he did. And this is why they are suing him. Okay. So starts on November 10th. So the championship was November 2nd. So just to set the scene here, this is the following Monday after the season is over. Not the very next day, but the following Monday. So up until then, that was when the time stopped. They're what they're claiming here. This is the overview. What they're claiming is that he had made additional demands for additional authority. So he was already the competition director. He wants more authority. Joe Gibbs says no. After he says no, he immediately embarked on a brazen scheme to steal JGR's most sensitive information and use it for the benefit of another competitor in NASCAR, Spire Motorsports. So that's what they're alleging. Let's go down a little bit here. So this revolves around confidential information and trade secrets. We hear about this, right? We hear about trade secrets. But what is this exactly? What is the trade secrets? So this consists of race car setups and the proprietary technology JGR uses to run the simulations to determine those setups. Okay, so they're saying, first of all, we've got our own simulation software that is unique to us that we come up with these setups with, right? All teams have this, all the big teams do. Also, the analytics and the processes for measuring things like the performance of the car, the pit crew performance, and driver performance, right? They can, down to the littlest, tiniest things, they can measure how a driver maximizes the setup or how he gets to pit road, all these things. Those are unique to JGR, they're saying. Also improving those things, improving the race car performance, improving the driver performance and the pit crew performance. Hey, we have technology that we use to do that, and it's ours, okay? And also analyzing the performance of competitors. They say they have their own technology for this, their procedures, and the other drivers in the field. Also evaluating the fuel consumption of JGR cars and competitor cars before and after races. So they say we have a way that we can measure fuel mileage, see how much fuel is left in our cars and our competitor cars. So that's unique to us. Also, information that's unique to us is the compensation, how much we're paying our employees, how much their bonuses are, engineers, pit crew, crew chiefs, all that stuff, and how much we receive from our sponsorship. So they're saying those are that's our proprietary information. Now, they list the ways they take precautions with this information to make sure it doesn't get out. And they list them here. passwords, not letting people in the building. One thing is obviously right here, uh, as a condition of your employment, you have agreements that you cannot share these secrets, right? So this is one thing that they're going to be claiming has been violated by Chris Gabehart. Okay. So we go down here and they say, why don't we want our secrets to be out, right? And obviously you guys know this who are NASCAR fans, but they feel like, especially in the next gen era, if you let teams know this stuff, it would allow those competitors and their partners to reap the benefits of JGR's substantial investments without expending comparable time, effort, or capital. Possession of this information would enable competitors to improve their race teams and equipment in ways they could not achieve through independent development, thereby allowing them to unfairly compete with JGR by bypassing or accelerating the research and development process and negating the expertise JGR has built over decades of success. So they're saying we put millions of dollars into this, we put time, energy, effort, people into this. We don't want our competitors to just get a shortcut by having this information. Okay? So, furthermore, they say that Chris Gabehart should have known this because this is something that we've heard that has never been formally reported because of the sensitivity and legal ramifications about it. So we'll just have to not name names here. But some of you are aware that there was a situation where in 2024, a JGR employee was accused of misappropriating this same type of information, trade secrets, to another team. And they say that Chris Gabehart worked with the senior leadership in this situation to investigate and address this misconduct of misappropriating this after that said employee had obtained an offer to go work for another competitor. And so because of that, he learned about all the how important this information is to JGR and how it enforces this, and how even that JGR will conduct computer forensic investigations of employees who it suspects of misappropriating its confidential information. So they're saying not only did Chris Gabehart, be aware of this, but he was actually involved in another investigation, so he would have known all the procedures that they undergo here. So we go for a little bit further down. They also say, listen, here's a bunch of information up here that he had access to as his role of competition director, technical information and the processes and the stuff he laid out before. Stuff he did not have access to, though, was things like not related to his job duties, like information about drivers, sponsors, business partners, payroll, unrelated to the competitive activities. So they're setting that up for later. They're saying he didn't know everything, and he was restricted from access to knowing everything. So we go down a little bit further. So they're going to start getting into how they figured out what happened here. And they say that he had a company laptop. Okay. By the way, should serve as a warning for anybody using your company laptop. We're going to go into how much they can find here if you're doing anything inappropriate on your company laptop. So they say, like, we warned you when you're using your company laptop, since the computer system belongs to JGR and it's for business purposes, you should not expect privacy in anything you create, store, send, or receive on the company system. Do not store personal/private information to a company computer. Okay, they're setting that up. Now they're setting up some other claims they're going to be making, which is standard here, non-compete clauses, right? So they say, here's your non-compete clause. If you got fired here, 9 months after, you can't go to another team. And also 18 months after you leave, you can't recruit or induce other employees at JGR to follow you to another team. So now we're going to get into the details here. So JGR claims that over the course of last year, Chris Gabehart became dissatisfied with his position as competition director at JGR. We haven't heard why that is from his side yet. He will file a response, we would expect, and we will get his side of the story. But JGR claiming that Gabehart wanted complete responsibility and control over all of the departments, supporting JGR's competition efforts instead of working with the other departments as a peer. So they're saying he wanted to be able to call the shots with more authority. Okay. So they say it reached a boiling point and he requested a meeting with Joe Gibbs. They met on November 6th, 2025. So remember, the season ended that Sunday, November 2nd. The banquet was then November 4th, right? Everybody stayed over in Phoenix and celebrated and Kyle Larson's championship, all that stuff. So people would have been in Phoenix. People probably would have traveled back that night or November 5th. And then, so this is the Thursday now after the championship. They had this meeting. So during this meeting, he requested the additional authority that would give him carte blanche over all racing decisions. So he wants to call the shots. Gibbs says, no, I'm not going to do that. And then says, okay, so since I'm not going to do that, do you want to stay with JGR or do you want to leave the company? Says he would rather leave. Wow, what a shocking breakup, right? This great season. Something's gone terribly wrong here. He seemed like he was JGR lifer, and he's going to go in a different direction. So JGR's impression is that they will pursue an amicable separation, and JGR begins preparing a generous separation agreement for him to look at. And it says defendant had other plans. Now, again, there's probably subtext here that we don't know yet, right? Because there's another side of the story, clearly. If it was just as simple as, well, Gabehart walked in the office, said, I want more authority. And they said, no. Now, no, do you want to leave? And we'll make a generous separation agreement for you to leave. You would have think that there had been some mutual unhappiness to some degree, or some ongoing unhappiness throughout the summer. We know that, and again, we haven't seen this as part of the suit, but we know that Chris Gabehart was put on Ty Gibbs' box for a while. He was asked to work for Ty Gibbs, work with Ty Gibbs to try to make the playoffs. Did that play a part in it? We don't know, but we'll wait and see. But there could be some other background here that we don't know yet. So November 10th, the last day we heard earlier, the last day he worked for JGR. So the Monday after the week of the championship, they gave him a proposed separation agreement. And under the proposed agreement, they say he would have been able to work for another NASCAR team. You know what? We'll let you go as long as you don't take current employees with you and you return all the equipment and information that you had here. JGR was only willing to offer these terms because at the time, Gabehart had told them he was unsure about his future employment, and they had no reason to believe otherwise that he intended to, quote, harm JGR. It says that would soon change. During the course of these negotiations, Gabehart's attorneys kept editing the agreement, and it says it appeared calculated to allow him to immediately try to bring JGR employees with him. They also learned later that after his departure from JGR, he had personally met with Jeff Dickerson, the owner of Spire. Then they became suspicious of Gabehart's intentions, according to this suit. So they undertook a forensic investigation of JGR's laptop. Must have a pretty good IT person there. And the results, it says, were shocking. So what did he do? Well, it says JGR's claiming here, again, alleged accusations. Number one, he synced his personal Google Drive with his JGR laptop. They found out that he had personally conducted Google searches and online research about Spire that fall, including October and November, before he had told them he was leaving. He also, on this Google Drive, made a file called Spire and a folder called Spire. I can't even speak. There's a lot of I words in here. He made a folder called Spire And inside this folder was another folder called past setups. They also later find out that he had taken more than a dozen photos of the screen of his computer. And this was on November 7th, 2025. Now remember, if we go back up here, he met with Joe Gibbs on November 6th. So the very next day, they claim he's now taken more than 12 photos of the screen of his laptop, and they say that these photos contain images containing confidential information, trade secrets, which we talked about earlier, right? So he's going like this to the screen so that they're saying, can't be tracked. That's what their accusation is. So they find this out, and as a result, they end the negotiations with him about the separation agreement. And on December 15th, so now over a month later, they send him a demand letter saying that he not use this confidential information and that he also cooperate in a further forensic review to try to identify and return and delete securely such information. So they say, we got your work laptop back, but we think that you have some other stuff and we need to get some of your other devices. So his lawyer responds and they agree to return any information in his possession, but they don't want to do the forensic review. He also tells them that the Spire folder was used to, quote, store his own notes and personal records. JGR, though, says this was untrue. He also said that he has not, quote, not retained documents concerning JGR's sensitive financial data. But JGR said this was also untrue, as the photos taken the day after that meeting contained a significant amount of sensitive financial information. So they say in this December, in the same letter in responding to JGR, it says Gabehart disclosed for the first time that he had received an unsolicited offer from Spire on November 13th. So he's saying that he didn't seek it out, but as he has left JGR, 3 days later, after he left JGR, he gets an offer from Spire. Spire reaches out and says, maybe they heard he was available. They say, wow, you're available? Chris Gabehart, are you serious? We'd love to get you, obviously, right? So, and they're saying that he claimed the offer was not to provide similar services that he provided to JGR. So it's not the competition director role. So they're trying to figure out how they can move forward with this separation agreement, because JGR now is like, we need to, see, more information before we're going to let you be free to work for another team, because we're suspicious of things after seeing this information from the forensic review. So they ultimately agreed to where a third party would look at his Google Drive and look at his personal phone, and he would look at the JGR information and securely delete it. But it sounds like it's not a full review from what I'm reading here. So it's not, they're saying, look, the third party can get your phone and any information that's related to JGR, yes, but we're not going to, it sounds like, we're not going to get your text messages, perhaps, right? This is what I'm understanding here. This is the agreement that they, in order to get part of his devices. It sounds like they wanted their information back to make sure it's not going to Spire. Before we let you go, we're going to make sure you're not taking anything with you. This is how I'm reading this. So Chris Gabehart turns over his devices on January 12th. They give the files on January 16th. And the files they give to JGR on January 27th. So that's the time frame here where this was all exchanged. Now, they say here that as part of this, JGR learned for the first time that the Spire folder contained, among other JGR information, 20 of JGR's race car setup files, and they find out that he had possessed additional laptop photos that he had taken on November 7th. As part of this investigation, this is where they find out, well, wait a minute, 20 of our setup files were in the Spire folder, and there's these other photos that he took of the laptop. They get those from his phone, I guess, right? Because he turned over his personal device, so now the guy looks through it and says, well, I'm supposed to pull off any JGR information. This looks like JGR information. So that's how they find this out. So they say, okay, we're now going to terminate this agreement because you've violated your contractual obligations. They say moral turpitude, fraud, willful misconduct, gross negligence, and or dishonesty. So they say you violated this agreement now more than we're not going to give you the separation agreement. They also learned 2 days later, February 11th, that's recently, that's only a little over a week ago. It says they learned for the first time that he planned to take the position of chief motorsports officer at Spire. And so that's not competition director, but they say that he would be responsible for all of Spire's racing strategy and operations. So they're saying here, he previously represented that the job offer was for a role he would not have similar services. And they're saying, well, wait a minute, if you're saying Spire's racing strategy and operations, that sounds to us like a competition director role. And so they think it is the same type of services. So they're saying he misrepresented here what he was originally gonna do for them. Okay, so now they're saying the full scope of his misconduct. So even more details. Okay, so we're drilling down on some of the things we've just learned. So again, we talked about that November 6th meeting, a few days after the championship. He didn't like the meeting. 2:45 p.m. Eastern time the next day, he goes onto his laptop while it was connected to JGR's network, and it says for 15 consecutive minutes, he accessed JGR's most sensitive confidential information and trade secrets, and using his personal cell phone, took at least 20 photos of his laptop screen. He used his personal cell phone to take photos of the laptop screen in order to conceal that he was accessing and taking this information trade secrets, utilizing photos rather than moving or sending the files. They're saying would eliminate the electronic paper trails to show the stealing of confidential information and trade secrets. This is what they're alleging. They're saying they think he did this. They're accusing him of doing this because they think this was hiding a paper trail so that he wouldn't have the files. He was just taking screenshots with his pictures with his phone. That's what they're alleging. So they say now that these photos were saved to his personal cell phone and his personal Google Photos account. And they're bothered by this because these are unsecured systems. Like his Google Photos account, they say was accessible even to his wife. So they're saying, wait a minute, we now have sensitive information out there that's gone beyond our company systems, and even his wife could see it on this account. So what did he take pictures of? Well, they say that they found him, that he took pictures of post-race audit analysis of team and driver performance for the whole season, team payrolls, job titles, contract length, annual compensation plans, a calculator used to project and plan for key JGR positions, driver pay for last year and this year, revenues from sponsors, pit crew analytics, analytics of race tires, and how those impacted race results. Again, we mentioned earlier that they claim that he created a folder called Spire and a subfolder called Past Setups. They say in this folder, there's like a 141-page PDF file, post-race analysis for 2025 Vegas, with all of JGR's analytics, including what data JGR measures at races, how it measures that, more than 20 ELAP files, they're called, where this says are reports generated by JGR's proprietary software using inputs hundreds of JGR employees manually add based off their own knowledge about how to make the best setups. There's a post-race debrief that all JGR's drivers complete. Engine outputs, diffuser pictures, a document about the transport for less cost and in a way that increases centralized communication and collaboration among engineers. So they're saying this is a proprietary way that they can communicate and get equipment for less cost than other people might. Fuel mileage for drivers, crew chief performance, all sorts of stuff. So again, pit crew stuff and a spreadsheet listing compensation for key members of the teams. And here's the kicker for this part, a document comparing JGR's performance at a specific race to that of a Spire driver using JGR's proprietary software and processes. So they're further saying that he even said, well, here's how JGR driver analytics looked compared to a Spire driver. So they're concerned about that. Now, they also say, in addition to the information that he had access to, there was other information in a document that he created himself. This is part of the unauthorized information that he wouldn't have had access to that we talked about earlier. And this is like things such as, like we were talking about, like, travel or salaries and all that stuff. And they say he didn't have, compensating drivers, incurred expense for hotels and rentals, payroll. That's what I'm saying. So he wouldn't have had this information. And it says he obtained this through verbal and other inquiries under the guise of needing it for projects he was working on. In actuality, he was surreptitiously obtaining these pieces of information for the use of Spire upon leaving. So they're claiming he was going around saying, so how much does this cost? How much does this cost? And saying, well, this is for a project I'm doing. But JGR is accusing him of saying, well, actually, I'm going to take this information to help at my next gig. That's what this accusation is. Again, none of these are unproven. These are all allegations. It's important to note. He hasn't even responded to these yet. So we haven't heard his side yet. When we hear his side, we'll be able to share his answer to these, right? Anyway, they're saying, look, everything in this Spire folder are the exact set of the confidential information and trade secrets that any of JGR's competitors would want in order to understand JGR's processes and technological capabilities and their payment structures that has led JGR to be successful and help the other teams get a competitive advantage. So now here's some other dates that we are looking at. So November 13th, we heard earlier, he got this unsolicited job offer from Spire. They met, Jeff Dickerson and Gabehart, they're saying they met on December 2nd. So a couple weeks later, they have a meeting. On December 4th, Gabehart spoke to JGR's president and said he had not spoken to any individuals associated with Spire about employment or any other employers about job opportunities. So they're saying that 2 days later, he's saying, I haven't talked to Spire, but 2 days before, he personally met with Dickerson, the owner of Spire. And on this forensic stuff, that they found that he went into the Spire folder on his Google Drive on November 13th, or 12th, 13th, 15th, 23rd, 25th, 26th, 27th. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7 times he's gone into the Spire folder of the stuff that they say he had taken from JGR. And he also went into it on December 2nd, the same day he met with Dickerson. Okay. So we go farther down here. Now, another part that JGR has a problem with is that they say that he began, after he received a job offer, their belief is that he began soliciting JGR employees to leave JGR and join Spire. So they believe that he starts telling people, hey, I'm not here anymore and I'm going to be leaving and I'm going to Spire. So maybe you should go, kind of thing. That's what they're saying. Um, and they say at least one JGR has departed, or at least one JGR employee has departed JGR and joined Spire. Specifically, one of JGR's employees supporting JGR's competition efforts left JGR's employment on January 3rd and began working for Spire in the same or similar role immediately thereafter. And remember, they said that he has salaries, right? Like he got the salary information. That's their accusation. So they believe that Spire agreed to pay that employee who left a salary significantly exceeding what the employee earned at JGR. So because you take all that into account, they believe that Gabehart solicited this employee to leave JGR and join Spire, which is in violation of his agreement. So obviously they're upset about this and they make several claims for relief based on number one, the misappropriation of trade secrets. And we'll go back to this, what they're asking for in a second. They say, and that was this misappropriation of trade secrets is under a federal act and a North Carolina act. They also say that unfair trade practices under North Carolina law, breach of the contract, which they've laid out why they feel that way here. And so what are they asking for? They're saying that JGR suffered damages and its trade secrets, the value of which have been diminished now, they feel like. And JGR will continue to suffer irreparable harm unless he is restrained from using or disclosing their trade secrets and returns all trade secrets in his possession, custody, or control of JGR. So sounds like they feel that there's still things out there that he may have, and they're still worried that he's going to take it to Spire. And so they want the court to say you cannot bring any of that with you, and you must return it. They also think that the value now, because of these damages, is believed to exceed $8 million when you take into everything into account. So they think that they should be owed $8 million and he should be prohibited from using this stuff. Now, I may be mistaken here, and if so, I apologize. But from what I am reading, they are not asking anywhere that he be prohibited from working at Spire. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that he cannot. They say we don't want you going to Spire. They just want their information to not be used. It says, I think. Also, as you noted, if we go all the way back up to the top here, this is Joe Gibbs Racing against Gabehart. So Spire, at least in this action, I guess they could theoretically take a different action, although you'd think they would have been a party to the suit if it was part of the same thing. They are not suing Spire and they're not suing Jeff Dickerson. It's clear it's just between them and Gabehart at this time. Other information, I don't have it here, but his contract was released, his employment agreement with JGR. Now, media members put that out there, including Bob Pockris, put screenshots of that out there. And it showed that he made over $1 million a year plus bonuses. Now, by the time I got to download these documents, that information has since been redacted. So it must have told the court, hey, you got this personal financial information here with his bonus structure, and that needs to be still confidential. So that is now redacted in an updated document. But the media members who first spotted this, Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic, my coworker there, was the first one to report on this lawsuit. And so, it wasn't redacted at first. So that information is already out there. But Anyway, that is the lawsuit. We will wait and see what Gabehart files in response. Um, Quite the accusations here from JGR, because they're saying, "Man, we got a lot of evidence here." And so, will this actually be at court? I mean, tough to believe it would actually go all the way. You would think it would be some sort of a settlement or agreement or something like that. But um, man, the big lesson I'm taking away is be careful what you do on your work computers, friends. Because if you do something that the company thinks is not appropriate, they have definitely these ways of finding out, right? Anyway, hopefully you found this stream valuable. Thanks for checking it out.